Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that when I post, you'll be the first person to know. Thank you so much for tuning. And on this channel, I do talk about social work in general, as I'm a social worker myself by profession. And it's information which I share from my own practice, from my own experiences. Of being in this industry for a while, and also from my own self-directed learning, basically. And I just need to put a disclaimer to say, don't take this information to think that it's coming from a guru. I don't consider myself to be a guru in social work, but I'm somebody who is just passionate about sharing information with others, and also enhancing others' learning as part of my, calling to be a social worker. The expectation is that I should be able to enhance others' learning as well. So in today's topic, I'm going to be talking to you about the few points, of what the Labour government is going to be doing for children in general, and also for local authorities, especially local authorities which are, delivering statutory services, basically. As you know, obviously, the Labour government is the government which is in power at the moment, and there are six things which are just kind of sifted through from my research on what the Labour government is going to be doing for children in general. First and foremost, as part of their manifesto, they spoke about lifting families out of poverty. How are they going to be tackling, or how are they going to be implementing that, or how are they going to be doing that? They talk about the Child Poverty Taskforce, which is, I think, from my understanding, which has been put in place. They are planning, or they've established this task force, which would develop a comprehensive strategy to reduce child poverty, which is made up of academics and people in the industry who have been in the industry for quite a long time, and they will actually devise strategies of how they can reduce child poverty. But however, one of the things that they're going to be implementing coming April of 2025 is free breakfast clubs. And from what I've read, they are planning to implement this in 750 schools starting from April, which will be like the pilot phase of making sure that each and every child, has got a free breakfast, in school. What they envisage to do, or that what they are envisaging through this program, is to make sure that children are ready for learning when they go to school. They hope that it will also increase school attendance, because children will be quite excited to actually, to see what's on offer on that particular day and so forth. But I think the plan would be by the end of financial year 2026, which is the end of the next financial year, they would have implemented this for the whole of England, really. They are, obviously expecting that, this breakfast club will be able to ensure that children start their day with a nutritious meal, and, on a full tummy. And I hope it will also, translate to free school dinners for all the children in primary school with some time. But as of now, we know that they're talking about free breakfast clubs. They're also talking about reducing the cost of school uniforms, because, as you know, it's not everybody who affords school uniforms. I know of some parents who are actually resorting to second-hand school uniforms, which would have been left in schools and so forth. And some, school uniform shops, they're also selling second-hand school uniforms. And, there are some parents who actually relying on that. So they're looking at coming up with a voucher system, which will actually be targeting those most vulnerable, households first, in an effort to make sure that they reduce the financial burden of school uniforms on families. So there will be other, programs that will be on offer in terms of fuel, fuel allowances for households, reduction in energy bills and stuff like that, all geared towards lifting families out of poverty. So that's point number one. Point number two is about keeping children safe from exploitation. It could be child criminal exploitation or child sexual exploitation. That's one of the key components of the things that they are promising to deliver as a new government, really. They are talking of revamping the current legislation to make sure that there are new offences which are focusing on criminal exploitation as well as child sexual exploitation as well. This will be mostly targeting, gangs, which are exploiting children, to make sure that that doesn't happen, anymore. And they're also looking at revamping the support which is on offer for support services for vulnerable teenagers, which will be providing teenagers at risk of being drawn into violence, into crime, and also into who are also prone to radicalization as well. So that's some of the things which the Labour government has actually promised. um, they're also planning to come up with what they are calling Young Futures Hub, which is more of an early intervention support system for teenagers, really, which will be established to prevent, exploitation. It's basically going back to the basics where we have youth centers and so forth, which has been taken off, but now the Labour government is planning of bringing back some of those support services to be in place, really. They're also planning on transforming children's social care. How are they going to do this? They are aiming to address the record number of children in care by improving social services. One of the ways that they are planning to do that is to go back to make sure that most local authorities, they've got a substantive offer on early help for families, to make sure that they don't only focus on statutory late intervention, but they also focus on early help, early intervention for families. This will focus on providing early help to families facing problems, and also to prevent issues from escalating to a point where there might be need for a child to be placed on a child protection plan only because there hasn't been neglect. But focusing on early help, making sure that families can actually self-refer themselves as well, which is actually happening now. But they are planning to implement, to make sure that that support is actually revamped in all local authorities. They're also planning to expand childcare and education in terms of high standards in early education. They're planning to deliver high standards in terms of early education, focusing more on boosting early language skills for children, identifying children who may be, who may be in need of help, or who may have additional needs quite sooner rather than later, really. And as mentioned earlier on, I spoke about the Free Breakfast Club. They're also planning to revamp mental health support for young people, to make sure that this is provided in schools as well as in communities. But at the moment, we know that this is mainly provided in communities through camps. But they're also planning to bring these services into the schools to make sure that they capture, the population of young people that needs to be supported quite early on. They're also planning to recruit more than 7,000 teachers, to make sure that there will be 7,000 teachers will be qualified and deployed in most schools in England, to make sure that there is good staffing levels in terms of teacher recruitment. The same with also training and retention of social workers. That's something which is on the cards. In terms of supporting children living with disabilities, or children living with disabilities, they are planning to improve that sector as well. Expanding those support services to make sure that children who living with disabilities, they actually assessed earlier on, and service is provided earlier on, and to make sure that service is actually given to those who are most deserving as well. They're also planning on enhancing the curriculum in schools, in terms of bringing a broader curriculum, which will be introduced, including issues around core literacy, numeracy in terms of English and maths, alongside access to sports as well as other vocational subjects, really, or at an early age. They are also taking into account the changes in the learning landscape with digital skills, which are now, which have vastly been improved by the introduction of AI. They are also planning to capture that and see how best that can actually be introduced to children from a young age, really, so that children can grow up with digital skills. But as we know that in most homes, this is something which is already happening. Most children have got tablets, have got gadgets which are online already. And in terms of I will focus more for the next 6 points. I'll focus more on what they're planning to do particularly for children services. They are planning on increasing spending or increasing funding to children's services and transforming children's services to make sure that services are offered within hubs rather than where services are kind of centralized at the moment. They are planning to make sure that services are offered in the local areas where they are easily accessible to families and young people as well. What do I mean by this? It will mean that some of the social work teams will be based in the children's centers, will be based in your local children's center or in your local particular area, so that you can easily access them, rather than where at the moment, if you look at it, services are actually based in a central location covering a wider area, really. So with increased funding, that's one thing also which they are actually planning to do. They're planning to reverse the current budget cuts which had been put in place by the Conservative government, ensuring that local authorities have resources that they need to provide high quality services. That's one of their campaign points in their manifesto, really. They're also talking about targeted support, making sure that there's additional funding which will be directed towards the most deprived areas to address the inequalities which I spoke about earlier on, to ensure that all children have access to equal services and the support that they need. They're also talking about early help and prevention services to all children's services, making sure that they restore early help intervention services. They're also talking about a holistic support which will focus on addressing the needs of the family in grassroots levels, making sure that all the professionals that are needed are actually part of the immediate child protection teams which are being implemented in those particular areas. They are focusing more on issues around poverty, mental health, as well as housing, hoping that if that is infused in children's services, then it will go a long way in terms of supporting children and families. They're also talking about workforce development, where they're talking about training and retaining staff. They're also talking about remuneration. I don't know how that's gonna pan out in terms of remuneration, because I also know that on the other hand they're talking about revamping the issue around agents, social workers. So those two things seems to be contradicting for my to me, the way I kind of see it and the way I read it. But we'll wait and see how they're going to be implementing that point around workforce development. But they've also emphasized on making sure that if social workers are based in locality teams or in local areas, it means they may have reduced caseload and there is a focused intervention for those particular families, and they are also able to offer a high quality support services to those for the particular families. So they are talking about reducing caseloads for social workers to make sure that it allows them to provide more focused and more effective support to each child and family that they are allocated to. They're also talking about strengthening the safeguarding response of local authorities. They're talking about having more clear guidelines and more robust systems in place to protect children from harm, especially when you talk about child sexual exploitation as well as criminal exploitation. Because at the moment, around criminal exploitation, they feel like it's not really robust enough to actually support children who are in that kind of predicament. They're also emphasizing more on multi-agents collaboration, which has always been in place, but they are talking about it as well as the new government. They are talking about obviously collaboration and promoting better collaboration between health, education, social services, the police, to ensure that there is a coordinated approach when it comes to child protection as well. They are talking about more accountability and oversight, strengthening the audit and the inspection oversight of Ofsted as well, making sure that there is a clear accountability mechanisms which are in place, which includes regular supervisions, regular inspections of service being offered, which they are planning to actually increase the number of inspections being done to local authorities as opposed to what is currently going on at the moment as well, to ensure that services are actually meeting the needs of the communities that they are serving. They're also talking about transparency, increasing transparency in how children's services are delivered, funded, and allowing greater public scrutiny and accountability. We're yet to see how that's going to pan out with time. And then point number 6, which is the last, they are talking about increased support to caregivers. They are talking of enhancing support to young people living care, ensuring that they've got access to housing, education, as well as employment opportunities. As you know, most of them may not necessarily be in education, in training, or in employment. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And I hope with that I've managed to give you some pointers on what's coming up from the Labour government. Some of these programs are already in place, or they've already been kick-started, but some of them they are going to be implemented from April 2025. So it will be an interesting time to see what's going to pan out really as time goes on, and hopefully it's going to reverse things which have been going on in your local area. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and hit that notification bell so that when I post, you'll be the first person to know. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy. Bye bye.